Right, so we're going to be recording this webinar, and like I said, we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation followed by a discussion in between, and that PowerPoint presentation is going to be in two parts. And as we go ahead, people can keep joining in. So I'm going to start my screen sharing right away, and then we start the presentation. Right, so today's webinar basically stems from a couple of things which we've seen over a few days, and over a couple of videos which have surfaced on Facebook as well about incorrect diving practices and diver safety. So here we go. While Scuba Evolution India, most of you who know us, started in 2015, and we are completely veteran owned and founded. We are also a public safety and technical diving center, and the only ISO 45001 certified center in India, which is basically operation health and safety specifically to diving. And it's an audited ISO certification and needs to be re-audited every year, something which we are very proud of. So today's presentation, like I said, is going to be two parts. The first one is going to be ethical practices and awareness, basically ethical diving, and what you as an operator can do, what you as a diver can do, and what you should be doing or looking for as a diver. The second part is going to be safety. Again, a mix of what operators and divers can do and what you should be looking at. I am not going to be answering any questions on chat as we go ahead right now till the time there's a break, because I really can't see both of those things at the same time. So basically what ethical practices are is just that they're a set of moral guidelines and principles that should be guiding anybody's behavior. And some of the key things that we take away from this is, you should practice what you preach, in the sense that if you're talking about garbage management and you're smoking, you're creating garbage yourself. If you don't carry a reusable water bottle, for example, you're creating garbage while talking about garbage. So just simple things which can, create awareness and make a change that you can do. Also, there are a lot of old government policies which, as we know, are much needed, were needed at that point in time, but now are completely different. And we need to kind of push the government to make changes and change policy for betterment, and with new science and with new information that we have. Also affiliate with like-minded organizations. Like today's presentation has been helped and assisted by Greenfins, and greenfins.net is a UNEP project on basically diver awareness, ocean awareness, and maintaining a reef ecosystem. So affiliate with like-minded organization and like-minded people, because that's what's going to help and change things. So for an ethical operator, what are the things that you should do, and what are the things as a diver you should look at when you're looking at a ethical operator? So some of these things I've just put on the slide here. The basic concept being that you want to be as honest to yourself and as respectful to the location that you are in, and therefore hire local help, use local divers, local instructors, brief your divers properly on all the ethical and eco-friendly practices, in terms of not littering, in terms of not reducing your overall garbage and impact and your footprint. Many times we have people come up and talk to us, and in fact this is going to come up in the discussion as we go ahead, where there's a blatant violation of ethics and standards, and people just say, here's my money, take me diving. You should just refuse those kind of people, and make it very clearly evident what you stand for. So you have prominent displays of eco-friendly or excuse me, and ethical behavior make your dive center or your location uh, more uh, I mean, have more eco practices in your dive center. uh, Keep garbage bins which are specific for different, segregation, recycle, reduce. There's something called biox, which a friend of mine, Samir Chetri, some of you might know him, just told me about. It's a oxygen cleaning product which is 100% safe. Even Simple Green now is 100% safe biodegradable product which also does disinfection. Just simple things like that. Keep your equipment serviced, maintain a log which you should be able to display to your customers. There are a couple of dive centers that also display their air quality and have things available like that, but not everybody can do that. But at least have your equipment service log and your gas fill logs available. When I say ensure a safe training and diving environment for everyone, it means you got to be very clear about the fact that today there are a large number of people coming in from various walks of life, different genders, different races and proclivities. So be careful about what you're saying, what you're doing in terms of making your environment safe. And I don't say be careful in terms of not getting caught, but just make the difference of doing the right thing. If somebody is offended by something, don't say it or don't do it. It's just that it's not. Don't be selfish. And of course, with today's environment of COVID, you want to be medically safe as well, and we're going to cover all those points as well as we go ahead. So I'm a Green Fins dive guide, and I did the course in 2009 last year, 2019, sorry, last year. It's a simple course. It's fun. It gives you a lot of information in terms of how your impact is in terms of numbers on the reef, and it doesn't cost much once you finish the course. I know Gaurav has done the course as well. Sanjay has done the course. Most of the people I know in the dive community and my dive shop have definitely done the course. And if you want the certificate, it costs you just $24 as a donation to the foundation. That's all. And it's a certificate that you can put out in your dive shop. You can download all the material, which we'll just show as I go ahead. And I thank Green Fins again for giving me the permission to use their infographics. So, for example, like I said, these are the numbers that you can have and learn about when you do the course. And just look at this: that there are over 2 lakh damaging incidents per year on a single dive site if you have this number, which just 2 boats, 2 dives a day, and 12 divers. This is at Goa, for example. This is like a normal day. And if we at a dive site do not take care and do not understand that we do not respect our community by disrespecting our reefs, then we are going to have a major problem at hand, just because of the damage being caused by divers, not being caused by ocean warming or global warming or anything else. Just us as divers can cause so much damage. And the way to change this is, one of the key things that we see is doing a environmental briefing where you talk to people about the environment, you talk to your divers about, and I'm going to cover that again as we go ahead. But it has been noticed that if you do not talk about and do not have role model behavior on the boat in terms of the environment, your divers are going to do the same thing. And I've seen this happen on boats where there's a smoker on the boat as a diver, and none of the instructors, none of the staff on the boat smoke. And that smoker will not smoke till the time they get back to the jetty or get back to where they are. That's the impact that we as divers or dive instructors have on people, because it's just peer pressure. Nobody else is smoking, so they won't smoke. But at the same time, if one of the dive instructors or one of the dive staff is smoking, you'll find almost everybody go to the back of the boat or even light up wherever they're sitting, or start asking for cigarettes and lighters. So just small things that can change. You see people throw plastic overboard, everybody will start throwing plastic overboard, because it's just the way human beings are. We are a community, we are a social being. We start doing we start emulating what everybody else does. So for good operators, like in Goa, for example, we just have generally a 3:1 maximum. In rare cases, we have a 4:1 ratio. But for divers going to different locations, ask for a slightly smaller group. Even if you have to pay a little bit extra, it doesn't matter, because you're going to be making the change. And when you make that change, and when you ask for a little smaller group, you're not only getting a better product, you're also making sure that the operator understands what they're doing, and that you really respect what they're doing in terms of the dive site as well. And also, when you're in a large group, you will not be able to see some of the things that the dive guide is trying to show you, and which again creates crowding, creates chances of equipment getting hurt. I mean, equipment snagging on stuff, people kicking up sand and silt whilst they're trying to look for something or take a picture. So as a diver, like this again, another great infographic where the first contacts happen within the first 20 minutes. 63% of the contacts happen in the first 20 minutes. So you want to be careful about that. You want to be sure about, being briefed and talking about it, talking to your buddy. If you're a certified divers, talk to your buddy, figure out what is happening. Different locations need different weighting systems, different, amount of weight as well. So if it takes a few minutes on the surface getting your buoyancy right, it doesn't matter. You might miss out on the first 3-4 minutes of your dive, but at least you won't damage the coral, you won't damage the reef. And most certainly you'll have a very enjoyable dive in your second dive, because you now have it dialed down really properly. So again, basic things: don't touch or chase marine life. Try not to grab onto anything if your buoyancy is bad. Make a point to make sure that you know what you're doing in the water. And unless you're in absolute cold water, you don't need gloves. It's just going to make you feel more comfortable about grabbing things. Do not take marine life or dead or alive. Basically, don't even try and buy coral products or shell products. And I see a lot of divers have and dive instructors have anklets or bracelets and neck pieces which have a coral piece or a shell piece on it. It's the minute you start doing that, it starts making people try to take that stuff out of the ocean and sell it to you or make it more popular. And therefore, once that happens, you're taking away stuff which should technically belong in the ocean. Improve your finning. We regularly conduct finning workshops during our technical courses, but even at the open water and advanced open water level, buoyancy and finning is something which has to be drilled into you and has to be practiced more and more by yourself. I mean, you can't expect an instructor to hold your knees or keep you up all the time. You have to do it yourself. So as a dive center also insists that people do not mess up the place. And there's Aryaman here who has seen the difference between a bad diver and a good diver in the water himself or during a class. And as an open water diver himself has seen and commented to me as to what a difference it makes if you have good buoyancy. So I'm sure if you show your divers what you're talking about, it's going to be make a big difference. Cameras and for example, I am still not comfortable taking a camera. I mean, I've got quite a number of dives under my belt, but I'm still not comfortable taking a camera because I'm not comfortable. It's just that simple. But there are a lot of people who are interested in photography, and whilst they are interested in photography, if you are interested in photography and you're not able to be comfortable with your buoyancy, one, I would say get your buoyancy sorted. And two, if you need some help, ask somebody to hire somebody extra, take a dive guide who will help you with your buoyancy or look after your like what we do when you're doing a research project. You have something called a guardian diver who keeps in mind your monitors your decompression and monitors your position, monitors your gas whilst you are doing the research or taking pictures. So get something like that. I mean, spend a little extra time and money on getting the right pictures. So again, as an ethical diver, just covered almost everything, but basically, dive local, build your own dive community first before looking at talking, going to other sites and stuff like that, because not only will it be good for your community, it'll also be good for your own diving, because when you go on a holiday or a trip, your diving is already good enough for you to start diving and having fun, rather than trying to learn something new and you spend extra time uh, during a holiday trying to actually improve something. So carry a reusable water bottle. I have this good stainless steel flask which gives me warm or cold water as I need. Use eco-friendly sunscreen and products, and eat healthy and make sustainable food choices. Even just that makes a big difference. There's this website on sustainable fishing and sustainable fish in India. Presently, I don't remember who runs it, but it's there. And choose the right fish or the right food product at that point in time. Of course, supermarkets have everything nowadays, so it makes it easier for us to just buy whatever we need. But if you're buying something which is not available in your city at that point in time, it just doesn't make sense. And there's a whole lot of going back to the previous point about product, there's a whole lot of sustainable t-shirts and ghost fishing, recovered ghost fishing net products, t-shirts, shoes, and rash guards that are available. Just go ahead and buy them, use them instead of buying something which is made of new plastic. So this is a small video about photographers. Right. So Avanti just tells me that the site is called Know Your Fish, and it's on the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So that's one of the choices you should make, and go ahead and look at it. See what what you can do from it. Yeah. So when we talk about sustainability, it's basically the ability to maintain a particular rate of whatever you're doing, whether it is sustainable, food, sustainable energy, sustainable diving for that matter. And for the environment, you do not want to overuse beyond a particular amount, because beyond that, it then becomes unavailable after a particular time. So I'm just giving you a few examples of sustainable operators and responsible choices. So in Goa, we have these operators who run sustainable stores, sustainable resorts, sustainable workshops, sustainable expeditions and tours, and they come under the collective called Responsible Collective. There's also in India, for example, there is ecotourism group, which is a national body of ecotourism ventures, and you could just go ahead and look at them and choose them. We are trying to get onto it. I still haven't been able to speak to people because we need to send them some documentation, but eventually I think we should be a part of this as well. So I come to something called garbage management, which most of us think of the 4 R's of reduce, reuse, recover, and recycle, but it's a lot more. And I've put these down. We've already spoken about being responsible and ethical and sustainable to the environment, but also make it a point to refuse excesses. Like when you go on a boat and you see the boat operator carry a whole bottle of a whole package of small packaged drinking water, refuse it, carry your own bottle. I mean, that automatically reduces your footprint. It reduces what you're carrying and what you're taking. Reuse, because you've already got a reusable water bottle, so just reuse it again. And recover and recycle go hand in hand. When you come back from the dive, if you've got a whole lot of garbage that you picked up from underwater, you could recover the plastic and recycle it, or put it into a recycle bin for that matter. And when I say represent, do a course, get your certificate from Greenfins, buy that t-shirt from Fourth Element, or any other sustainable company that is made out of recycled ghost fishing net, and make a difference. So this is a timeline which most of us have seen. Again, a nice infographic from Greenfins, and these are all available. Almost all the infographics available on my presentation are available online. I have a link which I have a page which I've created with a whole lot of links, which I will email to all of you, or you all can send me an email and I will send the whole page to you, so you can pick it up whenever you want. My email address is scubaevolutionindia@gmail.com. So just send me an email if you want the PDF or the infographics, the links to the infographics. Again, plastics, we all keep hearing about it and keep talking about it, but make the difference by having a garbage management policy in your dive shop. And as a diver, carry a bag that if you're taking anything that has plastic, bring it back and dump it at the nearest recycle center. Sorry. I was talking about an environmental briefing earlier, and there's going to be a video from Greenfins after this, but basically what it does is it builds a connection between you and the diver. It makes the diver aware of the environment, and it brings out various ecosystem interactions which the diver may not know about, like the goby and the shrimp, the anemone and the clownfish, and that overall builds a better experience for the diver, whilst also indicating the key points of interest on the reef or on the wreck for that matter. And between you and the diver, it then creates a certain ownership with the dive site, with the location, and between the builds the connection again between the operator, the dive site, the diver and the dive site, the diver and the operator. So it's a very important aspect. And again, I'd really like to thank Sam Craven from Greenfins for this.
Wish we will need to hear it. There's no sound coming through.
Okay, I don't know how this is going to happen, but it's going to be there as
Just disconnect the microphone. Sorry, disconnect your headphones, and then the sound will come.
This disrupts the food chain and leads to unattractive algae-covered coral reef.
Yeah, better.
Right,
Can you
go
restart
on.
the video, please?
Marine litter and can poison marine life. Environmental boat briefing. Why is a boat environmental briefing important? Boat briefings are a great opportunity to tell your guests about greenfins and how your company's guests dive in a way to protect the environment. They are proven to help divers improve their behaviour. What to include in a boat environmental briefing? Anything you flush down the toilet will enter the ocean. Ask your guests to use the trash can for tissue and to avoid using the toilet over dive sites. Marine litter can kill turtles, birds, and coral. Show guests how to safely dispose of waste while on board, including food waste. Any food thrown overboard attracts fish away from their natural food source. This disrupts the food chain and leads to unattractive, algae-covered coral reef. Cigarette butts are the most commonly found type of marine litter and can poison marine life. Provide your guests with ashtrays for proper disposal. Lead by example and give your guests a better experience.
And was that better?
Yeah, quite good.
Okay,
Clear.
so I'll do that for the next one. So again, as operators, anchoring, we've started using buoys in Goa. Andamans already has that. So make sure that your boat is anchored in a proper location, whether it's sand, or better still, if you have a mooring buoy. And if you as an operator ask for the local government, like I said, Goa has already started, thanks to Venkat and Anindo, who have gotten permission and started have set up the buoys. And as a diver, make your operator aware of the damage. There are some videos available which will actually show you how bad it is, when you can show them on your phone with today's good quality internet that you have on the phone. And if at the worst, just refuse to dive with an operation that damages the reef. Just go to somebody else. Don't because once you promote a bad operator, you're encouraging that kind of behavior. And so here's another video. Again, I'm going to try and do what I did earlier and see how the video works. Just let me know if the sound doesn't come through.
Alternatives to anchoring. Why use alternatives to anchoring? Anchoring can devastate fragile marine ecosystems in a matter of seconds. Never anchor on coral reefs, seagrass beds, or other important marine habitats. Environmentally friendly alternatives. Actively use moorings. By doing this, you protect the dive sites that help sustain your business. Mooring buoys can often support the weight of more than one boat. Research the tonnage that your mooring buoys support and remind your staff that they can moor to other boats if necessary. If the infrastructure is available, moor to a pier. This will not affect marine life and is convenient for loading and unloading the boats. Floating piers can be constructed with minimal damage to the environment and may be installed and removed seasonally if necessary. To secure boats at the shore, permanent mooring lines can be installed from the beach to a fixed mooring beyond the wave break zone. Install mooring buoys where possible. Install your own or offer your support to relevant local authorities. There are many different methods for installing mooring buoys. Please contact info@greenfins.net to inquire about appropriate choices for your site. There may already be a mooring buoy program in your area which needs support. The diving industry relies on healthy coral reefs. Be part of the solution and save our reefs.
We're now reaching the second part of the presentation, so I'm going to just stop. Okay. So, any questions so far?
No questions here.
Anybody wants to put it on the chat and we can take it from there? Or we'll go ahead with part 2, which is on safety. Go ahead. Okay. Right. So, I mean, basic concept of safety, and some of you have already seen this as part of my other webinar. I mean, being safe is being free from injury. So basically, you don't hurt yourself or don't injure yourself. I mean, one of the easiest ways to not undertake that operation or undertake the activity. And so we have various degrees of acceptable risks of injury and acceptable risks of safety. And it all depends upon the probability of getting the injury and the severity of the injury. So the factors governing your acceptable risk are, the efficiency of the operation, efficiency of the activity, and efficiency of your own self, your physical self, from being physically fit and mentally fit for the activity, and therefore not injuring yourself. The next would be, access to medical care, and of course your individual risk versus reward. Everybody is not, ready for diving or skydiving or base jumping or cave diving. It's just amount of the risk versus reward, which is again a acceptable risk to you or not. And then of course, as dive centers or as individuals, you want to be safe from litigation. Certain areas where you want to go diving may be protected, and you cannot go diving without risking litigation over there, or arrest for that matter. So as a dive operator, what are the things that you should look at? You should have a well-maintained, quality dive equipment. Make sure that your breathing gas is of top breathing gas quality, and there are no contaminants in it. With today's COVID situation, you want to be very clear about having good disinfection. And there's a difference between sanitization and disinfection. A lot of people say we've sanitized your equipment, but sanitization is only reducing the risk. It's not eliminating the risk. Disinfection is when you eliminate the risk and eliminate the risk of infection. So for that, again, there are eco-friendly products, and again, I will send you my email on the chat at the end, and please be sure to send me an email for the list of links which I have made, so you don't have to go around searching for it. Just log in and start looking for it. And then again, keep your as an operator, keep your equipment, your gas service and filling station logs ready for inspection in case somebody comes in. As a diver, be sure to ask. There are dive centers which will say that we are doing cave diving or technical diving or mixed gas diving, and when you go there, they don't have the equipment, or they don't have the gas available, or their equipment is in bad state, and then it's already too late for you to think about something else. Of course, at that point in time, you should refuse. But if you've already paid up some money, you will not want to. But as a dive shop, make sure that these things are available. And as a diver, send an email before saying that I would like to see this, or can you show these to me, or send an email to me. Again, eco-friendly policies we spoke about earlier. And this is about safety, because if you are using an eco-friendly product, that product is of course safer for human beings as well. And then again, safe environment for diving and teaching comes back to physically and mentally safe environment. You do not want to have any kind of what should I say, you just don't want to have a bad environment. It just has to be comfortable for everybody. And then maintain proper documentation. I mean, if you have your logs available for inspection, you're filling up the right forms, you're filling up the right disclaimers, your documentation is clear, and in case there's a problem later on, it's very easily solvable, because you show it to the student or to your diver and tell them that, look, this is what I showed you before and you accepted it, and therefore it's an acceptable risk of an acceptable risk. And display, your agency affiliation, have your certifications out there so that people can see them, have your affiliations with eco-friendly organizations like Greenfins out there, have whatever extra safety that you have, like for example, our ISO certification and OSHA certifications are all out there for people to just see it as soon as you walk in. So these are dive operator COVID guidelines, which have been set out by Greenfins. Again, downloadable on greenfins.net. I have the, I'm just repeating myself over and over again, I know, but I have it available for you to find easily. There's been a comprehensive guideline by Dan, and this is ongoing. They recently had a webinar yesterday, which spoke about almost the same thing which they had on this earlier. So it's just, people are just telling you to still continue to be safe and be careful. Whatever happens, even though it's opening up, it's not the right thing to do unless you are using your own equipment or are sure about that equipment or know that the dive center is disinfecting their equipment the way it should be. And ask, see what is happening. Just for your information, a mouthpiece being replaced is not disinfection. The entire second stage has to be disinfected. So just don't fall into smoke and mirrors. So this is the CDC guideline, which I've just downloaded and put here again. So as you can see, you need to have a very clear setup. Make a plan, implement your plan, and then maintain and revise. So it just has to be done continuously, and keep doing it till the time you're sure that it's the vaccine is out here. And also remember that these CDC guidelines are meant for the US, but India has its own guidelines which are also available and can be used and should be used in accordance, in consonance with this. So choose it and look for it. This is the basics of how to make a plan, what kind of surfaces you're looking at, what kind of areas are you looking at, and things like that. So you need to be sure, as a dive organization, you have both an indoor and an outdoor area. You have equipment that is being occupied. You have equipment which is being touched frequently. You have both hard and non-porous materials. You have a confined space in terms of a boat or a classroom or a swimming pool. So all these things are risks and have potentials of causing infection unless maintained and cleaned and kept properly. So this is the latest update onto the EPA website, which actually allows you to see and choose what equipment it is. And you can actually go in, and this is interactive, and figure out what it is. And in case you do not have the EPA registration number, because it's obviously going to be different for India, you can choose the active ingredient and look for it. So if you have a product like bleach, which is sodium hypochlorite, one of the easiest use, liquid bleach is one of the easiest disinfectants to have. You don't need much of it as well. You need just about a cup in 2 to 3 liters of water to keep a disinfection, a good disinfectant liquid, and use it as per the list, as per its listed use. And it's easy to find it on this. It's easy to find products which are not listed or products which are generic products and how to use them. And it also tells you how long the contact period should be and things like that. So again, from Dan, these are the resources available to you. So as a diver, if you've got, what are you doing to be safe? If you have your own equipment, ensure that it's well maintained. If you're not diving right now, send it for maintenance, send it for its servicing. Dive within your training level and certification level, which we always talk about, but don't always implement as divers, dive instructors, or even dive operators. So do that. Make sure you dive within your personal limits. You might have just been recovering from a surgery or an illness or just fever, and You don't want to push it and do your 40-meter dive just because you had a deep certification. Maintain good physical and mental fitness. Some of y'all are really, really keen on this, but it's important that you keep it at it all the time. Maintain proper buoyancy, which is something key. It's one of the basic skills. And this is my advice to you. Use photographic equipment only after mastering buoyancy. And I say mastering means be sure that you can stay within, half a meter of the water column, because that's when you'll be able to take the best picture without grabbing stuff. And be safe, be a conservative diver, invest in quality training, and continue your education. Again, one of the key things I've noticed is a lot of people are just trivializing the pandemic and COVID in fact, and saying it's okay to go ahead and dive and stuff like that. It's not just you, it's the community. If you are on the boat and you are not maintaining proper hygiene and proper and not maintaining your physical and social distance, you're basically disrespecting everybody else around you, and you don't want to be that person. So be responsible for yourself. If your buddy is there with you and they're taking off their mask or not indulging in improper practices, stop them. Maintain physical distancing. 1 meter, 3 feet is what everybody's saying. If it's more than that, fantastic. Go ahead and keep it at 6 feet on the boat if you can. Keep yourself physically fit and healthy, because that's going to be keeping your immunity high. And with a high immunity, it will be better for you to fight the infection in case you do get it. Do not hide your illness in your eagerness to dive. This is something important. A lot of people sign and actually will ask a dive operator, is it okay if I write no here, but I have this problem? So don't try to do that, because this is not the time, or when you're diving, it's not the time. It's just that simple. And again, respect if the dive operator or the dive shop tells you that, you may have paid, but you're not well. So please go back or come back another time after you've got your medical done. And so these are diver guidelines from PADI. This is again just what a diver can do. First point, do not go diving if you have or may have symptoms or been exposed to the disease, or any disease, it says. So just make sure that you're not infecting anybody else, respecting everybody else. Support the space program. So basically, give everybody enough space, and so on and so forth. Again, we've already spoken about all of this so far. But remember, at the end, if you have an emergency and you need to do air sharing, or you need to give rescue breaths, or somebody's dying, please remember that an infection can be treated in the hospital, but if you do not give them CPR right there and then, they're going to be dead before they reach the hospital. And you want to be sure that you're willing to take that risk. Again, it's a risk versus reward thing. Would you rather give them COVID that can be treated in the hospital, or would you rather have them die and take them to a hospital on a stretcher later on? So this is a new form which has been released by Dan Europe, and it's available again. Anybody who wants it can get it. It should be there for every dive shop, should have it. We're implementing it in our dive shop for sure, and has a basic declaration and as well as an additional risk mitigation factors. So again, thanks to Greenfins for this presentation, these infographics, which are really nice. And as a diver, I'm going back to what we can do. The PADI Project Aware, 10 tips for divers. And apparently what I've heard is that SSI India is also putting out their COVID mitigation plan. It should be out by tomorrow, if I'm not wrong. I've seen it. It's a pretty good comprehensive guideline. It's, I think, about 14 pages and covers everything that a dive shop should do, as well as what instructors should do. So again, going further, more tips about the ocean. As a diver for the government policies, make sure that these things are being done. In Goa right now, we have inspection and audit of dive centers before we start, but not throughout. But this is something which should be done, and something which we should be asking for as divers as well, and looking for marine protected areas. Lakshadweep has one of the largest marine protected areas notified right now. and they're looking at a sustainable growth model over there, but I don't know how successful that will be. As divers, promote ecotourism, ask the government to promote ecotourism and make that policy change. So what can you do as a diver? Like I said, do the green fins course, take the airborne pathogens course. I know for a fact that everybody in Scuba Evolution India has done this, and Gaurav has also done this while sitting in Philippines, if I'm not wrong. And this is the code, the email, the link to the page. And just take your time and do something which you can help others and teach as well. And this is not meant for divers, it's for everybody. So anybody who's in the industry can take this class, right? And so with that, I've finished, and we can go ahead and start questions. Okay, question answers. You can all unmute yourselves if you want, or one by one, or just put it out on the chat. I would like to thank Greenfins
Hi,
for their participation.
one question here. If you could tell me now, yes, while every dive center is going to say that they have disinfected their equipment, okay, let's say now specifically the second stages that you're talking about, okay, now while they claim, let's say, that they are disinfecting, and some actually might, there are very good chances that some may not. How does a diver who's coming to the dive shop or a monitor of the dive center ensure that this happens correctly, or that it is actually done before being handed over to a diver?
I would say you would have to invest extra time in that, in the sense that you would probably have to go to the shop a day before you go diving and tell them, I'm coming diving with you tomorrow here, because obviously you would need to send them your forms. You would probably need, and if in my dive center, for example, I would probably be doing a temperature test as well. I have an IR temperature sensor. I would probably use the temperature gun on everybody who's coming in and check their temperature before they take them diving. So I would prefer that anybody coming to dive would come in a day evening, or an evening before, and spend some time, see what I'm doing, disinfect their own equipment if required in front of me, put it in a Ziploc bag, put their name on it, and keep it sealed. Give them lockers. One of the policies that Dan says, and I think even Paddy says, is that you need to have lockers available for divers if possible, or just give them bags that are disinfected and kept with their names and kept separately. And only one person goes in and out of that room. So one of the staff goes in, picks up that bag, hands it over to them before they go diving the next day. They kit up and they go. So that's the only way you can actually be sure that it's happening. So a random walk-in in the morning, I wouldn't probably be able to take them even. So it's just that you have to invest extra time as a diver and as a dive shop to do that, to make it safer.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So Aryaman has a question about, other than the Greenfins course, is there any other course that we can undergo? So you can do the airborne pathogens course, which I'm sure you've already done, but there are a couple of other courses as well. Links which I keep sharing on my Facebook page, and I will, Aryaman, I'll send them to you. Don't worry about it. There are certain courses which you can do workshops on as a dive professional, on looking at unresponsive divers, on drowning, on pathophysiology of drowning and stuff like that. And of course, the Diver Medic has a fantastic Vimeo page, which is a whole lot of, there are about 30 1-hour plus videos on it, and just go ahead and look at stuff. It's extremely informative, extremely interesting, and spend your time, or at least an hour or half an hour a day on those videos. One of the things which Avanti and I were talking about yesterday was about what happens if a marine life comes and touches you, by mistake, when you're swimming around and something comes and slaps you in the face, like a fin of a fish or fin of a turtle or something, or a flipper of a turtle. And I'd like to, just throw it out there. And what would you do? It's happened to me. I've had a situation on a night dive when one of the divers was taken unawares by a turtle suddenly swim up to them when they were in the water, and they had no clue. Oh yeah, Avanti says it's actually happened to her. It's actually happened to a diver with me on a night dive as well. So what would you do? I mean, in that situation, what would you all do in that situation? Anybody wanting to answer that or take it up? Because I mean, I'll tell you what I did, and then probably Avanti can tell us what happened to her.
Well, it happened to me twice, and I freaked out at both the times.
Okay. Anybody else? This happened
Yeah.
to?
Just count the blessing. It doesn't happen very often. It's a very rare occurrence. So if that's an unwanted interaction, perhaps, yeah, you might be frightened. But in the end, it's something very special that not very many people can say have experienced. So treasure it.
Right. Thanks, Ronan, for joining us today. We're going to pick out having Ronan talk to us about something else which is really important. Just a few minutes now.
Yeah, gladly, no problem.
So what happened to me was we were at a night dive and we had our lights on and we were looking at stuff. And this turtle just came out from its sleeping area and swam up right to my buddy. And he was completely lost, and he, kind of panicked and moved back. But luckily he didn't break his buoyancy. His trim, of course, went completely awry, but he didn't break his buoyancy.
So then don't go all the way up, na?
Turtle was a little bit frightened as well. And so one of the things which I would request is that when something like that happens, be aware, look around you and try not to poke at stuff or try not to go too close to these things. The reef, because at night especially, the turtles are sleeping under overhangs and stuff like that. So you want to have a friendly, happy interaction with them. And you just imagine this at night. If somebody goes and tries to look into your bed, what's going to happen? You're just going to jump up and probably whack them. So, but in the day, it could probably happen as well. And I know Avanti is going to tell us about what happened. So Avanti, go ahead and tell us about what went.
I mean, sure. It's not really much of a story. We were in the Galapagos, and my then boyfriend, now husband, and I were swimming away from the reef, and this guy basically came and swam in between us and whacked us both in the face, and we didn't see him, and it dislodged my mask a little bit, but it was fine. But then he swam away. But I think the lesson there is, yes, like Ronan said, treasure it, because that doesn't happen very often at all, but also just make sure that you don't encourage constant interactions, because it's not good for you and it's not good for them. So these animals might be curious because some of them inherently are, but that doesn't mean you need to encourage their behavior. In fact, actively discourage it, I would say.
Sorry, what did they got?
And if they start getting too close,
so one leg will
or
lunge, one leg will step up. Do
just
12 each and then switch the legs.
Making too much contact, maybe use a finger. Maybe refrain from using a finger, but if you have one of those sticks, maybe use that and kind of gently nudge them away. That's what I would do. But I don't know, maybe Ronan or someone has better ideas.
Done.
Yeah, I mean, I had this issue with, not issue exactly, I had this happen to me when I was diving in Monterey. And Monterey Bay is filled with sea lions, and they love to chew you. I mean, they love to come and bite your hood. They try to take your mask off. They'll play with the bubbles. They'll come and bite your fins and all kinds of stuff. And you just can't push them away because they're pretty huge and pretty agile in the water. So, I mean, there are some of them who really like to play, some of them who can get a little bit aggressive. And then, I mean, the best thing is to just stay as far as away, use your fins maybe, and get out. That's what I did when I was in Monterey that time. But I don't think there's much you can do, because at the end of it, that's not our, the water is not where we belong, really. I mean, we would love to think about it that way, but it's not our environment, it's their environment. And therefore they are the owners of that environment, and they look after their space and they have fun there. So just like you said, don't encourage it, but try not to, hurt them while you're discouraging it. And Ronan, now we have a question, discussion here, which I want to put out. And Ronan has been,
sorry.
Can
I have a couple of questions. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, Ronan, we'll come back to you in a bit.
Okay. So the thing is that in one of your slides, there was this thing about keeping your filthy mitts to yourself. And so on generic terms, where do we stand on spit being a defogger now? And secondly, as a professional, when you're taking either students or, I think dry divers is the SSI term and DSDs is the PADI term for it. I've seen people have different methods of handling them. Like some people hold the tank and go like a helicopter, but you've worked with Venkat, so he likes to have their arms, holding their arms and all of that. His method. You get what I'm saying, right? So there are different methods and practices that people, use. So in relation to that particular slide, keep your mitts to yourself, what do you do?
So in this particular situation, first to answer your question, no, spit is not a defog. You would not want, there is no, basically every agency and every medical agency says do not spit, because spit is one of the biggest carriers of the virus and any germ for that matter. And if it's your own personal mask, even then when you spit, you're going to spread, there's going to be some aerosolization of your spit, of the body fluids. So you don't want that happening. So you use a defog, which could be baby shampoo, or defog, which you get commercially as well. Anything which is going to create a film, aqueous film that prevents fog from happening. And as regards contact, you're going to minimize this, and you're going to realize that it depends upon what kind of dive center you are with or what kind of diving you're doing, that eventually tri dives are going to be something which again is going to become extremely difficult to happen in this situation, because there's going to be physical contact and that's not what we want right now. So courses, beyond open water and beyond that is what people are looking at right now, because even if you have a course, you need to get into water, you need to have certain amount of physical contact with a new diver. So I just don't think that's a valid thing to do at this point in time. I mean, there are more experienced instructors on this group and more experienced operators, but in my opinion, it's just something which is a higher risk at this point in time. And unless you're doing only DSDs, it's just not worth it.
Vish, if I can interject here for everyone to hear, just to make it clear and so that everyone knows and can educate other divers about this or other people who are interested in diving, Try Scuba is not the same as a PADI DSD or an SSI basic diver. They do not involve holding someone like a helicopter and taking them around the reef. So they are completely different. What is generally practiced across dive centers today, unfortunately, is a variant that has come up, I would say probably locally and maybe in a few other parts of the world. That is Try Scuba, which is pretty much a guided dive, you holding the person and taking him along. That is not what either SSI or PADI recommend.
That's right. I mean, I completely agree with you. The standards have been like, which is what Siddharth also said, that somebody has different methods and different. It's just a locally developed method of being able to do what is done. Let me put it that way.
Thanks. Just one more thing. Just because we were on the topic of safety, in your opinion, what makes a good emergency plan? So, for example, I know all dive centers have their respective emergency plans, but what is necessary and what should be on that piece of paper? Because like a couple of plans that I've gone through is just like names and numbers. You have the hospital, you have their numbers, but there's no explicit instructions. So if you could just like kind of elaborate on that, please.
Right. So, I mean, when you talk about an emergency action plan, there are a few things which you need to figure out in the very beginning. as to what your emergency is going to be and how your response is going to be. I mean, if you can have a emergency action plan of what, like you said, have phone numbers and names, you call them up and that's it, your emergency is done. But that's not, that depends upon what exactly, what are you responding to? If you have a cardiac arrest on the boat, how are you going to respond to it? So every emergency action plan cannot be just a page. It has to be, for a dive center, for example, you need to have a proper comprehensive emergency action plan that says, okay, this will happen, this is what I will do. This will happen, this is what I will do. And these are the people, points of contact, who have to be contacted for this action. And if you don't have that, you're just, it's very basic, rudimentary, call 911 or call, 100 kind of plan. That's it. That's your emergency. That's not an emergency action plan. That's a reaction. You have actions and you have reactions. An emergency action plan is an action. It has to have exactly what you're going to do, what is the scenario that you're looking at, what you're going to do if that scenario happens, and how you're going to do it, and who is going to be involved. You can't just have a piece of paper with names and numbers. It just doesn't work that way.
Thanks.
Right. So Ronan, thank you for your patience. So apparently, one of the important things is that we see a lot of people gathering cameras and taking pictures and trying to, and some of them are really good photographers as well, which is why one of the slides was managing photographers. And what happens when you have a group of photographers who come in from, and paid photographers who spend a lot of money, come in and are pretty good photographers really, but really don't care about the environment or the area. And so when that happens, how do you react to it? So we've had, I'm sure Ronan has an experience on that, which you would like to share with us. And then, we can take the discussion further. Ronan, over to you.
Sure. Well, that depends on the situation, of course, and I can only speak for the operations that I've been working for, or which I helmed at that point in time. So I work on liveaboards in Indonesia, and if you meet new people and it's a group or a specific group that are photographers, and they have an idea as to what they want to do or would like to experience. I mean, the first things first, there's no guarantees on anything. That should be a logical conclusion, but most people seem to think it's sometimes it's a zoo. Regardless, if they say that they want to do something and in the process disregard the rules and regulations that we put up or put forth at the very beginning of each trip. So we do go down similar to the slides that you've shown in the sense of what kind of behavior we're expecting. Certain things as a scuba diver should always be implemented. Peak performance buoyancy is the #1 thing in all of these things. It's like, if you have good buoyancy, you're a good diver. That's as simple as that. And especially photographers are actually those. Well, it depends also when they started taking pictures. I mean, there's the old school, which disregard everything and anything, and it's difficult for somebody who's younger than them to tell them, hey, that might have been okay in your time of the day, but nowadays that is not acceptable anymore. And then there's the other part of the spectrum where a lot of people are very conscientious on how they dive and what they do and how they interact with the subject as well as the surrounding area in that sense. If there is people who disregard the rules of no touch, no nothing, and I do appreciate you saying it's like you don't even need to use gloves unless you're in frigid dive environments, and because those kind of things tend to give you the idea of being able to touch things without harming yourself, but in that process you will be harming quite a bit of the reef. So we have, or I have a system in which it comes down to warnings. At the end of the day, you guys are still guests. A lot of the people are still paying guests. So a lot of people think that they can get away with certain things, but it doesn't go that way. It's like I can only instruct my dive guides to notify me if I haven't been in the water myself or haven't seen anything. But that usually works very well. You know, it's like they'll be too shy, especially the Indonesian guides, to confront you underwater or say something. There's always an exception, and some people are going to be like, oh, whoa, he told me not to do these things. And if they come to complain to me, I'm like, well, they're completely in the right. On the other hand side, if they come to me and they ask me for support in regards to the bad underwater behavior, then I will approach this individual. And I have a system similar to baseball, I guess. It's 3-strike system. It's like the first time will be a warning, second time I'll ask you not to go with the camera, and the third time you're not going diving on the next dive. It doesn't matter because if you disrespect the general rules, you're not respecting the institution as well as the activity that we're doing, because we're doing these kind of things, or most of us are, I'd like to think, are diving in order to be able to experience pristine reef environments and interactions with marine animals, you know. So it should be ingrained in every diver, especially in the beginning when they become an open water diver and so on and so forth, that respect is the number one thing that you can showcase if and when you are diving, and if you're diving with an operation that you're visiting and you're a guest at. So if I see him underwater, personally, the 3-strike system comes again. You know, I'll approach the first time and tap you on the shoulder or something like that, and I'll tell you, hey, come back up. Your fins are on the ground. That's a no-no. On the second one, I'll simply use my pointer stick and lift the fins or the elbow or the knees or whatever have you that is interacting with the reef. And on the third one, I'll simply yank you off in such a manner that I will try to avoid causing more damage to the reef. But you have that one coming, and then of course the stern words will be spoken once you're up on the surface again, and those warnings will again be enacted.
Right. Thanks so much, Ronan. I completely echo with what you say, and it's really nice to know that, you know, these things are prevalent. And when I say these things, I mean things like what you do are prevalent elsewhere as well. And we're not alone in trying to enforce, you know, be the scuba police, so to say, but we're actually enforcing right behavior, because some people are just not willing to, like, you know, we talk about it. It's like they just don't respect the environment or respect the fact that if you break off a coral today, you're not going to be able to see it or photograph it tomorrow. And there might be, you know, one little shrimp or one little goby on that coral, which makes its home, and then tomorrow it's not there because it doesn't have a home. I mean, it's just that bad. And my way of, you know, is almost similar. You know, if somebody doesn't do it, that's they're not diving with me again. I mean, they get, and I just give them one dive. If they're able to do it and sort themselves out, that's like you said, you know, if I see it underwater, that's their one dive which they have to demonstrate to me that they're capable of doing the next dive.
Absolutely.
And if somebody comes and tells me that this is what happened, I'll again, you know, talk to them and try and get it out. But one of the things which I would suggest, you know, for divers and groups as well, and dive instructors and dive staff, is that speak up. I mean, like you said, you know, people are shy, the Indonesian boys are shy, or whatever. It doesn't matter. You are the, what should I say, custodian of that environment. It is your home. It is your place of learning, your place of earning. It is your, you know, safe place for you, so to say. If somebody's breaking something, if somebody's damaging the reef or damaging something, tomorrow your earning and your well-being is going to be affected. So speak up, you know, and dive shop owners and dive shop and other instructors and dive guides and other divers, please support these people, you know, support the right thing, support. I mean, I've seen senior instructors on boats talk to people and, you know, talk to them quietly. And then there are some instructors who talk to them brashly, and some people don't talk about it because they say, okay, forget it. You know, there's no point talking to them. There is a point, you know, when you publicly shame them, and I'm not saying shame them, but if they don't listen, then they need public shaming. But if you publicly tell them that, look, we had an incident on the boat, and out of this last dive, there were 2 divers who were, you don't need to name everybody, but 2 divers were in contact and it was bad. Let's see it improve next time. Maybe
Exactly.
next time you actually point out and say, diver number so-and-so and diver number so-and-so were bad. So, you better behave, otherwise you're not coming on the boat next time. Like you said, it's a way of doing it.
And another clue that is very, very important in my opinion is like if you give a briefing, may you be a course director or the tour guide or whatever you want to, what title you may have. A thing that I tend to say is in the beginning of the briefings is like, I'm asking you to follow these rules in order for you to hopefully be able to come back from a dive with the best possible experience that you could have had, with the longing of wanting to come back. And once you come back, you can then say you are part of the process of protecting this environment in order for you to be able to experience it as you had before, if not better. And also that this is not just solely for you as an individual or the group, but also for future divers and people who haven't had the opportunity to come to these places.
Right.
Because unfortunately, if etiquette isn't upheld, you can tell, I could name countries right now, but essentially, it's like the dive industry booms, people come, people do, and nobody is holding anybody accountable. And next thing you know, the paradise that once was is now a devastated area. And that's a key thing to remind people, especially if you go as groups, that the group leader perhaps mentions this beforehand. And if not, then at least approach the cruise director or the dive-based manager and have him mention this in their briefings, because that is an essential part, to be reminded of that and to be conscious towards what you can do for yourself as well as others.
Right. And another thing which I have been promoting, but so far I haven't had the reason to do it, but it's something which is important to me in the sense that as a dive operator, we keep asking for divers and our patrons to write a good review about us on Facebook or TripAdvisor or anything, and it works the same way. I mean, if somebody's putting a picture, or somebody's a diver has come to you and you've had a bad experience with them, I would go out and put that picture or put that review that so and so is not blah blah blah, whatever, they're not good buoyancy, they would need an extra class. I would have no shame in doing it, because at the end of it, if I get a bad review, everybody looks at it and says, okay, I'm not going to come to them because they have this policy. Similarly, why should somebody, and I've seen divers actually get rejected in Goa especially. There have been a couple of cases where divers have come to multiple agencies for training and eventually not got training, not agency schools, and eventually not got trained because of their attitude. There are certain people who are untrainable because they have a bad attitude, and eventually somebody else has given them the certificate because they bought it. But the point is, it's happened, and it's good to see that kind of a system in the dive industry, where people talk to each other about what's good and what's not good. So I would suggest that anybody who sees that, as a diver as well, if you see somebody posting fancy photographs and when you've dived with them they've had bad buoyancy, just write down on their it's just simply put it down, Instagram versus reality kind of picture, that this is what you are showing, but this is what you actually are, and I'm sure they will stop, or at least maybe there will be anger or comments to you, but it's fair enough. At least you've made the step up and talk about it. What we are doing today, all of y'all who are here, agree to the fact that just by being here, you'll agree to the fact that we are all a community and we're talking about ethical practices and ethical behavior and things like that. Yeah, Avanti says it's not, public shaming is not a good idea. Well, I'm not saying public shaming in that sense of the word, but just writing a review about, in the nicest possible way, that this is somebody whom I would not go diving with again, or not take diving with again, just something like that. Rather than
on point of Avanti, like a lot of divers keep improving. It's not a normal thing. Like at some point they might lose buoyancy, they might not be a good diver to your eyes, but as time goes by, they might like improve themselves, right? So public shaming is actually wrong on my point of view. You can't just go and tell you're bad at buoyancy, so I'm not going to dive with you, or just post something that's wrong about them. Like, okay, I myself lose buoyancy at times. If I do have long breaks because of my college and everything, and at times I lose my buoyancy and struggle for some time. This has happened to me quite recently, like even last year. So if somebody does, and especially an instructor like yourself with a good name does, I will obviously feel embarrassed and ashamed, and I won't even like it won't like be a good thing on both the sides.
All
As an
right.
instructor, you should actually like tell, okay, Coco, you just miss your buoyancy, you can do this. There's a difference, right?
Oh, I agree. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about if I tell you on the boat that Coco, you don't have, your buoyancy needs some more practice, and you need to do a slightly more shallow dives, and that kind of thing. And then you say, no, I don't give a shit. I'm just going diving. I'm going to the reef. I'm going to still kick it up. Well, if you do that, you're disrespecting me as well. And when you start doing something like that, you're not respecting the environment. You're showing me that you don't respect and you don't have self-respect. Because if somebody's actually trying to make a correction for you and teach you something, I mean, help you learn is what I use the word. I don't say teach at all. I mean, when I say teach, I really don't like it. But somebody is helping you learn to improve your buoyancy. And just to give you an example, I took 2 years off cave diving because I had a medical issue and I didn't have time. I went back and did a 2-day refresher course and spent $600 just doing that class. Because as a diver, I felt that I wanted to get back into the same level at which I finished. And I had the right attitude, in my opinion. But I've seen people who just go in and kick everything up and try to, oh, fine, I'm at this level, I can do it. No, if you have had a break, take the time to invest in going to a pool and telling your instructor that, okay, can I have a shallow water dive for, maybe one day, one evening, and improve some kind of, what I have, or just refresh what I've done. That's the right attitude. But when somebody tells you on the first dive, hey, you've had a long time off, what's going on with your buoyancy? And maybe, you should not do the second dive. And you say, no, I want to do the second dive, and you kick up a whole lot of rubbish. What do you think I'm going to feel about you? I mean, like I said, I mean, it's just not respectful. And yes, I agree with Avanti that it's tantamount to bullying, and it is bullying. But bullying is only if it's in the wrong, when it's in the wrong way. If you're actually trying to advise somebody, it's a different thing. And when you're actually pointing out somebody that this is what you're doing wrong, or this is what, when I talk about shaming, I'm not talking about public shaming. I'm talking about actually writing a review and saying that so-and-so is not worth coming to my dive center. And then you can go anywhere else. I'm not shaming you. I'm not saying that I'm giving you specifics. That's what I mean.
If I may say,
difference, right? Sorry, Ronan, I'm sorry.
No, by all means, go ahead. I'll go after you.
It's okay. You can go. You can go first.
In regards to in regards to the public shaming, so to say, it's not necessary to do it in the aftermath effect. What you had said earlier is quite important in that sense, that we are social creatures, and peer pressure can be a positive thing. For instance, for somebody who is a smoker or who's traveling with non-smokers, and he therefore smokes less, or at least not in front of you. Whereas the other way around, it could become rampant, and everybody coming to the back of the boat or whatever, and do their thing, and therefore maybe intruding on other people's privacy or health regards. However, you also said, the question of yours to me was, what do you do if photographers do these kind of things? So as a group, this is not necessarily shaming, this is not necessarily bullying, but perhaps if you see your group member in during your dive doing things that you know he shouldn't be doing, you can mention that as well. And if you have a camera, then you have irrefutable evidence to make that individual see the light at the end of the tunnel, and maybe agree that he was in the wrong to do so. And the only thing that can come from that is that they would at least try to improve themselves. And I'm not sure who mentioned it earlier, but yes, maybe a little bit later, further down the road, the individual who hadn't had good buoyancy in the beginning has now improved thanks to multiple dives and further experience. So it's not unnecessary to actually call out individuals. Now, if it's a person who continuously does this and disregards everything, like Vish said, well then, yeah, that should be a measure that should be considered, in the sense that, hey, this individual will not listen, may that be from his group leader, may that be from his fellow travelers, as well as the powers that be from whatever organization you visit, then that's the extreme at the very end. But before that, there's so many more steps and measures that can be taken to avoid something like that and actually come to an amiable agreement.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Just to give you all an example, if you have, sorry, Coco, go ahead.
Yeah, so like Ronan said, there's like a lot of steps before you do that. But people, like some people just don't care. For example, let's assume I'm going diving with 5 other people and I'm seeing another person diving wrong. I mean, like not following safety procedures. I try to tell them first, like even if they have 100 dives, 1,000 dives more than me, I first try to inform them what's wrong. Okay, and still, if they're being such an ignorant person and they're still repeating their dives, breaking things down, being unethical diver, then yes, I can put like this person is not good to dive with. But if you're going to do it in the beginning, like the person who has like Siddharth has said, maybe a person who's just new to diving and has only like a few dives, well within 10 dives or so, you can't pressurize a person at the very beginning. You make them learn the buoyancy at the point when you're with them. So if they're having 2 dives, you try to make sure they're buoyant, they're good, and not disturb the corals and other things over there, right? So there's like a difference.
I agree. I completely agree. But I don't agree that a diver with 10 to 15 dives will have bad buoyancy. Because if they have bad buoyancy, they should choose another instructor. It's just that simple. By the end of your 3rd dive in the open water course, you should be able to have buoyancy, because you're supposed to do a simulated safety stop at 5 meters in an open water course. So anybody who says that they don't have good buoyancy should choose a new instructor and move on to a different dive shop. I do not accept that when you say a newer diver with 10 to 15 dives will not have significant buoyancy. I mean, you can send them to me. I will maybe do a pool session for them for 3 hours, and probably you can see the difference in their buoyancy. I do not agree to that fact that somebody with 10 to 15 dives should not have good buoyancy. It's just that simple. They should choose a different instructor. That's what I would say. They haven't got the right instruction. Gaurav had something to say. Gaurav, go ahead.
I think we are going around in circles there. The buoyancy needs to be corrected. There are no 2 ways about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a basic skill. There's no question about it. I mean, which is why you do the safety stop in the 3rd dive. So if you can't do a safety stop, why did you get certified? How did you become a diver? That's my next question. So if you accept that you got instruction from somebody who gave you a card because they wanted to give you that card or gave you the certification without you performing the standards, well, then think about it yourself. Why would that person be a good diver? They don't have the attitude. So I mean, just to give you another example, forget about buoyancy. If you dive with somebody regularly who keeps coming back with 10 bar or 15 bar because they've not been monitoring their gas, what would you do? Would you dive with them again? Would you want to dive with them in a situation where they could run out of gas every single time? But,
no, not really.
So many examples. I mean, forget just buoyancy. Buoyancy is just one of the things, and it's a key thing. So, which is why we're talking about it. Buoyancy, gas management, basic finning techniques, few basics which you cannot compromise on. And again, if you have been compromised during your instruction, please choose a different instructor. Please spend the time, the effort and money to research and find somebody who's willing to take that time with you and train you properly. I have no qualms about saying, I will show you how to do it in open water, in the open water dive itself. I mean, I have Aryaman is here. He's my student during in the last season itself. He can, you know, bear testimony to whether I'm saying is right or wrong. It's just that simple. So, Aryaman, you want to take it on? Whether I'm lying or I'm actually making sense?
No, makes total sense. Yeah, I think you really helped me get my buoyancy and my gas consumption on track. Otherwise, I was just going crazy with everything that I was doing underwater.
And that's my job, right?
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, I mean, point is we like Gaurav said, we are, you know, going around in circles. But the point is that we're talking about ethical diving, and one of the key things in ethical diving, which I was talking about, is getting your skills and keeping your skills current, and, you know, being a good diver. If you are not a good diver, if you're not, you know, taking care of your skills, then you yourself are not respecting the environment and yourself, and you're disrespecting other people around you. Why should your buddy or your dive guide constantly have to worry about your buoyancy, which is a key skill from the open water course? So just something like that. So are there any more questions? I'm just going to put down my email address here. And this email address is for anybody who wants the info, all the infographics, the PDF of the presentation, and a file on all the links that I have shown so far, and other important links and videos for anybody who wants to know more about ethical diving and safety and green fins. So thank you very much for being part of this. And Ronan, thank you for your time. I'm sure it's really late. And Gaurav, it's almost past midnight where y'all are, I'm sure. I think you're still in Indonesia, Ronan?
Yes, I am still in Indonesia, and don't worry about it. I'm a night owl now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Good night. I'll be leaving. It's almost 11:30 here in Philippines.
Right. And Avanti, thank you for you know, being here and getting people around, Ronan especially. I'm going to stop the recording, and thank you very much. Any questions, just send me an email, and we can take it on from there. Coco, thanks. I really don't, you know, honestly, I don't bully people. I don't like to
I was just telling, dude, it was just a word. I know you don't bully. I know you're a good guy.
So,
and thank you so much for this wonderful session.
And yeah, so this is going to be available on YouTube. So we'll have this saved there, so you can share it, and please share it with anybody that you want. Put it on your pages, you know, and we can talk more about this. And yes, I have a decompression class which is going on for 1,000 rupees. Anybody who wants to do it, just join up. I have somebody, Akul wanted to join. So if we get one more person on it, we can start the class whenever available. Right. And thank you so much. Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you all are. Right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.